let's talk Gophers football recruiting. Gophers just wrapped up their second and final Summer Splash official visit weekend of the 2026 cycle. For non-diehard recruiting fans, I guess what that means is they hosted all of their 2026 prospects and recruits on official visits this weekend, or this last weekend, I should say, and then the first weekend in June. And in the recruiting calendar, that gives players an official chance to get on campus. The school rolls out the red carpet, and it's their true visit to make sure that's the school they want to go to. So after their second, I guess, weekend here, the Gophers have added 11 verbal commitments to their 10 recruits that were already verbally committed before um, their official visits, all 10 of which took official visits this month. But where do they stand right now? So, high school football recruiting's in a really interesting spot. With the transfer portal in NIL, it's not as valuable as it once was. But I personally think with the implementation of revenue sharing, I think we'll swing back in that direction for high school recruiting being very, very important to team building once again. I think we're going to see a lot more um, players stay at a school for multiple years, and I think roster retention isn't going to be what it once was. The transfer portal is still going to be a thing, but I think it's slowly going to correct itself. So, in the short term, I think high school recruiting is still important. You can hate on it all you want. Say, oh, these guys aren't going to be here in 2 years. What does a commitment mean anymore? I totally see those arguments, but it's still an interesting thing. So, with all that being said, the Gophers now have 21 players verbally committed to their class. They have three, I guess, four-star recruits that were already committed before this official visit weekend. Program like Minnesota, those are the recruits that are going to take your class from good to great. Minnesota's under PJ Fleck has built its program on developing the high level 3 stars, but the 4 stars are what takes the program to the next level. So, Gophers got three of those. Andrew Trout from Rocori, Minnesota, Howie Johnson, defensive lineman from Forest Lake, Minnesota, and Justin Hopkins, cornerback from Nashville, Tennessee. So, overall, on the surface, this recruiting class, as of today, June 16th, Monday, following their summer splash weekends, it looks like an average PJ Fleck class. They have a couple 4 stars. They have a good quarterback, Owen Lantu from Illinois, who I'm a fan of, and I think he has potential to start in the Big Ten. They got a few good skill position players. They have three wide receivers committed to the class: Rico Blasingame, Kai Meza, and Hayden Moore. And then they have some really strong offensive line recruits that are high level 3 stars, which the Gophers have kind of built their program around. So it's the I guess if you're listening to this and you're like, how should I feel about Gophers recruiting right now? Like it's the same as it has been right now. But with that being said, there are some 4 star targets left on the board. So, notably, one guy who's going to make his commitment probably after your watch or before you watch this, Messiah Tilson, a safety from Illinois, is going to commit on Monday between Minnesota, Wisconsin, Rutgers, and Kentucky, and he is um, the Gophers are kind of leaning the wrong way. Um, I heard that he canceled his official visit this last week and he was not on campus. So he's a guy that you're going to see on Twitter that he didn't pick the Gophers probably. You never know. But that leaves some other guys left on the board. Um, the big dominoes left to fall include Roman Voss, the number 1 player in Minnesota, who's four-star recruit, who's going to choose between Alabama and Minnesota. If the Gophers can get him, that's going to be what takes this class to the next level. Because if they get him, I think there's a good chance they get Pierce Peterson, tight end linebacker from Minnesota as well. In my opinion, the number 2 player in the class, deciding between Penn State and Minnesota. Both those guys are four-star recruits. If Minnesota gets both those guys, I think we're looking at a potential top 30 class, because then you got 5 four-star recruits, which I believe would tie the most that PJ Fleck has gotten since becoming head coach of the Gophers. Another player to look out for, Jaden McGregory, who's a safety from Iowa. The Gophers have been in on him for a while. He's going to take a couple more official visits. I believe he's making his commitment on July 7th. But those are the top 3 right there. I think another interesting thing to look out for is the second running back the Gophers get in this class. Because they're going to get 2. They've gotten 2 every year since PJ Fleck became head coach. With new running backs coach Jaden Everett, I fully expect them to do that again. And that's a position that Minnesota has routinely recruited very well. With Bucky Irvin, who was a 4-star. Cam Wiley a while ago, who was a 4-star. He didn't really live up to his expectations at the college level. But Darius Taylor was a high 3-star, I believe. And then, yeah, they've just recruited the position very well because they have a track record they can use. They've had great players at the position. Muhammad Ibrahim, Rodney Smith, Shannon Brooks. Bucky Irving was very good. Kai Thomas was really good the one year he was here. And Minnesota is able to sell running backs on that. They had 2 running backs on campus last weekend, Ryan Estrada and Ashton Roden, 2 4-star recruits. Neither of them have committed anywhere yet, and they've taken multiple visits. I would not say the Gophers are trending in any direction there, but they're recruiting against some top programs. Ashton Roden, I believe he took 4 other official visits to programs in Texas, so pulling him out of Texas would be quite the statement. And then Ryan Estrada, he's hearing from Michigan, Alabama, Wisconsin. So if the Gophers miraculously get either one of those 2, that would be a huge win. But that's one position that I could see them maybe revisiting near National Signing Day, maybe looking to flip a recruit. Kind of what happened last year with Shane Marshall, the guy who flipped to Georgia Tech on early National Signing Day. But that's a storyline worth monitoring, in my opinion. They currently have Ezekiel Bates committed, who is a solid 3-star recruit and has potential to start in the Big Ten, in my opinion. Very early in his career, I think he could be a difference maker. He's a really solid pickup. And if they don't get another running back, it's not the end of the world either. But that's a storyline I'm monitoring after those 4-star recruits I mentioned at the top, Roman Voss, Peter Sean, and Jaden McGregory. So third storyline that I'm monitoring here is the sheer number of recruits they have. Right now they have 21 players committed to their class. And I believe the last 5 years they've averaged 20 recruits per class. Obviously, none of these guys have signed yet, and a lot can change between now and early National Signing Day. They can flip. We've seen it before. Honestly, it'd be pretty surprising if there wasn't at least one player who flipped to another program. So that's always worth mentioning. But um, like I mentioned on the top, I think high school recruiting is going to swing back in another direction where a lot of these programs try to build through high school and they try to become developmental programs again. And I think the Gophers are doing that based on the sheer numbers they've got with 21 verbal commitments right now. If they get any more than that, that would be their most since 2020, I believe. They had 24 verbal commitments, and that was kind of the last year before the transfer portal really blew up. So that's a storyline I'm keeping an eye on too, because this is not going to be their 21 player class on early National Signing Day. Modern college football recruiting, that's just not how it works. There's going to be some changes. They might lose some guys, they might add some guys. Um, so that'll definitely be interesting, in my opinion. And then, lastly, I guess what's really fascinating is a casual follower of recruiting. They'll look at the Gophers class right now. It's probably like 16th or 15th in the country. PJ Fleck does this every year. I think before the official visits, he had a lot of good momentum. He already had all three of those 4 stars committed. So I personally, as someone who follows it, thought that there was some momentum. And if he got a Peter Shawn, a Roman Voss, Messiah Tilson, who's now probably heading elsewhere, one of those running backs, McGregory, if they got any of those guys, then the ball is rolling, and then you could build on that. That momentum's kind of stalled out, in my opinion, but it hasn't bottomed out by any means. So I'm not. If you're a Gophers fan listening to this, um, I wouldn't sound the alarms by any means. I think it's business as usual right now. They're taking some swings though, so they're getting these guys on campus that uh, have a lot of other top programs they're considering, which is a win in itself. And it's a lot different than, let's say, NBA free agency or trying to make a trade. How you get an aggressive GM trying to make big swings, but to an extent, that's what they're doing. They're trying to go after some big fish, and it's a tough ball game to play. Minnesota doesn't have the same budget as a Michigan and Alabama, um, some of these other programs. So it's interesting, but they're trying. So um, I wouldn't say that Summer Splash, both these official visit weekends were this huge victory where PJ Fleck's a master recruiter and he gets all these guys. It's business as usual. It's what it's been for the past 7 years. He's gotten a couple 4 stars. He's building with. He has good evaluators on the entire staff. They know what they're doing with these 3 star guys that might be in the 500 to 1,000 range on 24/7 sports. They develop them into Big Ten players. They have and they will again. Um, and that tells you, I guess, the health of the program. And but I, if you see on Twitter, if someone's like, "Wow, PJ Fleck, 16th in the country," like it, if they don't add any of these 4 stars, this class will end up in the 40s. So I'm not having any judgment yet because, like I said, they're in the mix with both Roman Voss and Pierce Peter Shawn and Jade McGregory. So if they can get uh one, even and possibly 2 of those recruits, this class, then you're looking at maybe mid 30s, and maybe you sneak up into a top 30 class there. But yeah, uh, I don't have the crystal ball to tell you if they're going to get those guys. I don't have the crystal ball to tell you how good any of these guys are going to be. But they're recruiting in Minnesota well. Andrew Trout, Howie Johnson. You could argue those are the top 2 players in the state. Roman Voss and Peter Shawn, they're clearly in the mix there. It's not a scenario where they're like, oh, Minnesota, I'm not even thinking about it. They're strongly considering Minnesota. So that's a good thing. Uh, they continue to recruit quarterbacks well. I'm a big fan of Owen Lansu. And they're just filling out this class. They are leaning on these new position coaches that they have, like Dennis Doughton Carter or Dennis Doughton Sutton. Now, I'm getting him and the Penn State defensive lineman mixed up, but they have a new defensive line coach. Winston Delatz is not there anymore, so they're getting it's new evaluation there. They're showing how good of a position coach they are. I mentioned the new running backs coach, Brian Callahan, offensive line coach, is elite. He might be the best position coach on the team. Him and Matt Simon have just a great track record of wide receivers and offensive linemen at Minnesota the last 7 years who've been with PJ Fleck for a while now. And then in the secondary, they continue to recruit that very well. And I think this class is no different. I think Justin Hopkins has star potential. Um, and then there's some other guys that they're filling out with positions there that they've evaluated very well. Nick Monroe and Danny Collins have evaluated very well. Chance Payne at cornerback and Jordan Lampkins at safety. Two guys that aren't recruited or ranked very highly, but they have a proven track record of being able to develop there. So I think it's an interesting point at the cycle because there are those big dominoes left that have not fallen, that will fall, that the Gophers still seem to be in the mix. But they've raised the floor is at where it has been right now. This class isn't going to be outside the top 40s or outside the 40s. That's the bare minimum. Um, the Summer Splash official visit weekend was successful. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Business as usual. Um, so I it's an interesting thing because anyone who tells you that oh, this guy's going to be great at the college level when he's a mid three star, I'm not grinding the tape of all these guys, but they're recruiting well. They're not recruiting outstanding. It's not anything out of the ordinary. The program's very healthy, um, and they're in a good spot. Recruiting's an interesting thing right now, so it'll be interesting to follow. But those three dominoes are the next thing here with Voss, Petershon, and McGregory. That's what's to monitor here throughout the summer as we inch closer to the 2025 football season. So, as always, I appreciate you guys for listening. Make sure you click subscribe. Like the video helps us get found a ton. Keep an eye out for any Minnesota sports coverage, even online, with some more stories on Vikings on SI, Timberwolves, Gophers, and Twins. And until next time.